Is James Gunn getting fired? I want to talk about this quote here for a second and some of the speculation around James Gunn today, only because I'm seeing a lot of this chatter online. It's been happening for, well, pretty much since Warner Brothers went up for sale and there was a possibility of other companies buying it. What's going to happen to James Gunn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of rumors, a lot of scoopers saying stuff. But James Gunn here in this quote, and this is going to be from a Variety article on a podcast. And so the quote is here for us to look at. We'll talk more about this on the Nerdcast in detail, but I wanted to get ahead of it here and just chat for a second with you guys. So let's read this quote, and then I'm going to give my thoughts on all of this DC Warner Brothers thing. Here we go. James Gunn says, "Everything's unknown. I've been through these sorts of changes so many times. Always be careful what you wish for because you don't really know until you know. I hope it goes well. Every direction has really exciting things for DC." So people are kind of using this as sort of a way to say that James Gunn already knows that he's fired. I don't know how the mental gymnastics lead to that destination based on this quote, but let's kind of look at everything he's saying here, which in my opinion is a lot of nothing. I don't know, call me crazy. Doesn't like there's a lot here. So he says everything's unknown, meaning that he probably doesn't know exactly which direction they're going to go, but we know, based on all of the public information available to us, that Netflix most likely will get Warner Brothers. And matter of fact, by the time this video comes out, we may find out that they have. We may find out that Netflix has acquired Warner Brothers, and now this quote means nothing. However, that looks like the most likely scenario. Paramount is trying to jump ahead of it. They've tried to do a hostile takeover, and at every turn, pretty much the majority of the shareholders have rejected Paramount because they want to work with Netflix. There's a lot of reasons why it's a better deal. I've gone over this in great detail on the Nerdcast. We'll probably talk about it again over the next coming weeks. But that's what he means by everything's unknown. He doesn't know anything. No one in Warner Brothers have been told anything, probably because no decision has been made at a level where they can start telling all the people involved with Warner Brothers. Because I've been through these sorts of changes so many times. And, you know, I mean, everybody who's worked in Hollywood as long as James Gunn has probably gone through some of these shifts with ownership and property rights and IPs and things. So, I mean, this quote makes sense here. Always be careful what you wish for because you don't really know until you know. Now, I would say this is sort of a warning, shots fired, at all the Snyder bros out there who say they want, you know, Netflix to acquire Warner Brothers because they want the Snyderverse back. So many things wrong with that entire mindset. Like, Snyderverse is not coming back. It's just not. This isn't one of those cases of like, release the Snyder Cut and then the Snyder Cut gets released. It's not one of those. That was a long shot. I don't think Warner Brothers should have done it. I do think that the Snyder Cut is the better of the films. People can argue whether or not you agree with me or not. Theatrical cut, Snyder Cut. I think Snyder Cut is better. But I don't think they should have given in to the Snyder community because it didn't really do anything positive for anything in the DCEU. It didn't increase the value of that brand, of that franchise. It didn't do that. It didn't bring people into theaters. It didn't move the needle enough. It just gave stuff back to the toxic community that was online screaming and hollering and harassing people. I think that was a mistake. We did get a good piece of media out of it, but overall, I don't know if the juice was worth the squeeze on that one. That was a different situation. Zack Snyder he still had some of this content available to put together to make the movie. He really wanted to do it. I don't see any world where this is going to work, considering Netflix ended their agreement with Zack Snyder for whatever reason. It doesn't exist anymore. We're not going to get continuations of Rebel Moon or any of the other projects that he was supposedly working on. The ship has sailed on that one. So we're not getting that. So it doesn't make sense to me that they would acquire Warner Brothers and then rehire the person they got rid of because the movies and content that he was making wasn't doing anything financially significant for Netflix. So that doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense. If they decide to get rid of the DCU, like get rid of James Gunn and Peter Safran and that entire thing, what the most likely scenario will be is a bunch of Netflix shows based around DC characters. That is the most likely scenario. That's what they would do. Because you don't get a high-profile director like James Gunn coming in as a package with Warner Brothers, and then you let him go to use someone else in the industry to continue whatever his vision was. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. So which means they have to do another reboot after they just did one. If they're going to do something like that, it's going to be making a TV show or a bunch of TV shows like Greg Berlanti type stuff, like Arrowverse type stuff, slightly elevated for Netflix. That's what would happen. We're not going to see the Snyderverse return. It's not coming back. It's not. Which is why he says, be careful what you wish for. You're going to lose all the DC movies if they get rid of James Gunn. They're not going to be pumping out a bunch of DC movies. We'll probably see Batman stuff in the movie theaters. Most likely. Then he goes on to say, I hope it goes well, because of course he does. Every direction has really exciting things for DC. Meaning that he's looking at the positives of both things, whether or not it goes to Paramount, whether it goes to Netflix. He's looking at how that would positively affect whatever he's doing from both companies. Paramount would be the worst option in terms of like content for the government, for the world. Because once Paramount sinks its teeth into Warner Brothers, it is going to swallow up another company and turn it into a propaganda machine, which is kind of what they're doing with their news division right now over at CBS. I'm not going to get too far into politics, but just know that if that were to happen, it would be a net negative on every level of that particular portion of Warner Brothers and their media. And when it comes to movies, they just ripped an Avatar movie out of theaters and put it on streaming after they just said they committed to, I think, like 30 movies a year from Warner Brothers. Doesn't make me feel very comfortable that they're going to do that when they are ripping their own movies out of theaters to put back on streaming. That doesn't make me feel good about it. So I don't believe them on that one. I don't believe them. And it doesn't seem like the shareholders do either, because they're kind of like not hot on Paramount anyway. Now with Netflix, we know Netflix has money, they have means, they have the drive, they have the hunger to do stuff with the IP they'd be acquiring from Warner Brothers. The big question mark on Netflix is in some ways similar to the question mark with Paramount now, is how many things are we going to get in theaters? How long are they going to be in theaters? Are we going to see a stripping down of the kind of content you would get from like some of the more indie feeling movies, the smaller releases, the non-wide releases, the things that Warner Brothers puts out there, in between the bigger films? Are we going to see that kind of thing with a Netflix ownership over Warner Brothers? I don't know. However, it does look like Netflix will be the company that will acquire Warner Brothers. I don't see James Gunn going away. I know there's all these people on the internet that are saying that. The only way James Gunn goes away is if they're getting rid of their DC movie franchise. That's the only way that happens. And that's a bigger problem, because we'd be losing a ton of stuff in the pipeline, things that are already done. This would be a Batgirl situation again, or they would just dump everything onto Netflix for streaming, which I don't think a lot of people want. So for me personally, as much as I want to see other things outside of James Gunn's vibe in the DCU, I don't think that means we have to take James Gunn out of the equation, because if James Gunn goes, the DCU goes, and that entire movie section of Warner Brothers goes with it. It'll be all Batman stuff with the occasional random one-off movie from DC with this Netflix acquisition if they were to get rid of the DCU. So I'll be honest, I'm a little worried on what they're planning on doing because of their movie release format. But I'm optimistic that if they're going to keep DC as a film franchise, they're going to keep James Gunn. Can they afford James Gunn? Do they want to give him the money that Warner Brothers was giving him? That's another question. Anyway, thanks you guys, and we'll see you later on in the Nerdcast.